So hi guys, how are you doing? All good, this side. And most of them are familiar faces because from the forums and the things I have done, consulting, all those things. So before we start, all these, can you see this? So this is like colored now. From the behind, can, right? And this one, that's Visual Studio Code, and this is Visual Studio. This screen, behind, back, good. So I don't believe in normally on slides because I have these ugliest slides ever. Not this one. So, right. So before we start, so this is like not just .NET Core. Anybody who's developed code, that's my main idea, right? It might be front-end developers, it might be just back-end developers, or the full-stack developers. And if you see this black screen, don't worry about it. I'm going to go back, and now you can see. So no slideshows, just the PowerPoint. So this is me, right? Half of me. And so these are the links to reach me, the blogging and the LinkedIn profile. So don't look at my Facebook profile. So that's totally different story there, right? So this is the LinkedIn profile. If you want some professional stuff, go there. So others are not to my Facebook account or my Instagram. And I am a Microsoft MVP. That means Microsoft MVP for developer technologies. All C#, Node.js, all the JavaScript, front-end, back-end, all this information, right? The problem I'm going to solve today, mostly not for experienced developer, maybe or a normal developer or a fresher. Any graduates, fresh graduates here? Freshers? Interns? Okay, you will see this coming. Right? For example, it's like this. When you start coding, right, most of the people have a problem. When I go to these places, they just start like this. Okay, we have a requirement, we have a thing. We don't know where to start. And we don't know how to code. So most probably, so they don't know file new project. So can you agree with me? So where to start? The file new project, so how to start? How to name these things, right? So most of the projects we get is somebody has started it, we get it, and we continue it, right? Those are the things we get. Anybody who started from scratch, any company, any developers, any project? Any SLT guys? Good, because I have a story for them. SLT, okay. No SLT, right? So those developers, when I do some consulting there, they have a problem. They said, I need to create a ticketing system. To start with, this is a ticketing system. So I thought, okay, don't you have a ticketing system already? Because this is SLT, right? So they have complaints, all these things, but they are still starting to develop this ticketing system. So I said, okay, can you just show me how to develop, where to start? We don't know where to start. Right? There's another guy told me, this is her, it was a team, this is their 6th time to start this one. They start something and they develop something and they say, okay, we're going to start it from new, start it from scratch. They said, like in the middle of the code, they decide, okay, no, it doesn't matter. This code doesn't work, it's nice, and then there are new technology comes in, and then suddenly they decide to restart it. Right? It's like you're going to a different wedding with the same dress, right? So the wedding is new, the food is new, all these things, but the same dress. You go there. It's like, this is another problem people have is changing the technologies. What is that? We have, okay, .NET Core 2.2, we write code. Suddenly the hype comes in .NET 3, right? Stop everything and start in .NET Core, the same code, but a different technology. So you don't do that. This is because most of the things I've noticed these things. Let's start from here. So where is my slide? Okay, these lines, no, not lines, poor names. Poor naming. This is the first thing I've seen. Like poor namings, what are these names? Sometimes, if you look at this code, if you go back here, and I have Visual Studio Code, for example, you will see SQL connection, I'm going to say new SQL connection. This one. What does it mean? So normally I believe in code. So the another problem we have, like these design patterns. Most of the pattern and practices, have you heard about it? I'm not a just big believer of these design patterns, right? For example, it's like this. For design pattern, I may believe in like more maintainable code. If your code can read, like it should be like a story. Like this is my file name, and this is the story starts, and this is it goes like, and this is the story ends, right? What if, like for example, normally people get these projects like 3 months or 4 months, like an MVP. MVP means like the most viable products, a small thing, a prototype you have to develop, and then the customer gives you like 3 months. They gives you 3 months, and then suddenly you start with a design pattern. This pattern, that pattern, and then you write code for that, right? So you write code for like another 2.5 months, and then there's a demo day. What are you going to show to him? You're going to show the source code. Okay, I have 100,000 lines of source code, and it doesn't do anything, but we did the pattern. We just developed the pattern, we did nothing, right? So my advice is, like I don't know, it depends on, some people might be agreeing, some people might not agree, right? Not agreed, right? Because my idea is like, first deliver something, it works. You don't care about, because there are lots of refactoring tools now, like this one. ReSharper, right? Have you used it? If you're just willing to come to our developer forum, Sri Lanka developer forum every month, we give 2 licenses of JetBrains product, free. So you can use ReSharper or any JetBrains product you have there, right? 100% free license. So ReSharper will be a very good tool. And then why all these editors just bragging about our ID supports refactoring, our ID supports this, our ID, most of the renaming, all these things. There are lots of things, right? Supporting refactoring. Why is that? Because people know there is no such thing called a perfect code. For example, if you just write a code 5 years back, if you look at a code 5 years back you wrote, what do you think? අවුරුදු 5කට කලින් අපි ලියපු කෝඩ් එකක් දැක්කොත්, for 5 minutes you just start කවුද මේක ලියුවේ, then slash තියෙනවා Fiqri Ismail ලියලා තියෙන මේක. Okay මාම කමන්නේ. ඒ දවස්වල බීලා ඉන්න ඇති. So right, so those kind of things you just think, right? So can you explain this one? CN මොකක්ද මේක? අපි මෙහෙම ගියා down ගිහිල්ලා cn dot close. Right, this is the main problem we have, right? CN, sometimes this is okay. If you just code like this, student for int I. What is this I? Right? This is okay. Sometimes this is okay because it's like a just small word, but you have to explain these things. This is called poor naming. And there's another one. Another problem is these long namings. Right? Poor naming, long namings, all these things are, first thing, try to understand what you are developing. Then come up with a proper name. That is my advice. Right? These names can be for you. Just sometimes there are people name like this. Int count. What is this one? This is called Hungarian notation. So we have to live with it. Hungarian notation, most of the Visual Basic developers do that. Called Visual Basic. All people. Another. Right? Visual Basic. So Visual Basic developers used to do this. str, name, those kind of things. You don't have to do these things. Why is that? Because your code should be excellent. For example, this is in count. What are you counting? What are the counting? So we can say, okay, record count. That's explanation, right? It's just your code should, okay, my int record count equals 0. If record count is greater than or something, then you know, you can read that code. It's like human readable. This is human readable, and if you just say int count, what is that? And sometimes this is worse. I've seen some people like doing like this. I count. Or maybe S first name. That's worse. Right? Those are the things are called poor naming. Another one. So I'll just show you some code here. I'll just bought some very bad code. I can show you some poor naming. See? Not this one. Let's go to the next slide. This. And the naming conventions. Same thing, right? The poor naming and the naming conventions comes into the naming. Why the naming is important? Anybody can tell me? Developers? No. So, right? You understand this one, this part. What's the name? Comes to the next step will be long parameter lists. I have seen this code. Who's guilty on this one? If you are like passing parameters to one end of the code to another end, right? So you pass parameters, for example, you say, okay, sometimes I have seen code, save user, first name, last name, all these like 4 or 6 parameters on the method name, right? If you look at it, how do you just solve these things? Right? If you just look at this code, let's see. That's one issue. Long, poor, long parameter list. Look at this code. Right? Can you see this one? This part of the code? See? It says get reservation, date time, date from, date to, the user, and the location type, and the customer ID. Right? All these things are in one parameter list. If you want to refactor this, what will be a solution? This long parameter list. Anybody? So you can extract these things into these 2 parameters, right? Into another class or maybe another method. Why is that? So you can say, okay, date range, get date range. And you can get the date range inside to this reservation. Get selected date range. Those kind of things, right? For example, this one. The customer information, the use information, the customer information, the location information, the location type. Right? This is another issue. So those kind of things we have to look. So people do these things for easiness. Right? If you want to pass things, you just put an add in a parameter. Sometimes you do, because on the C#, in the latest C#, it has optional parameters. So you just put an optional parameter, it doesn't break the code even. Why is that? Because everything else will be that one. If anything new, you start from here. So that's one bad thing you have to do with the long parameter list. And the other one, if you have resharper, just select these things. For example, I just show something else. So let's go back to my slide. Variable declaration on the top. Because if you are coming from a background as a Pascal developer, Pascal developers how they name? No, Pascal developers. Normally, Pascal developers declare all their variables on the top of the code. Right? Program, code, they have this code in the var, and then all the parameters are there. Right? If you are coming from that kind, most of the things, the variables will be on the top. Right? They just they start from that, because when they create a method or something like that, all the variables are on the top of the method. Right? Why is that? Sometimes you might not use that variable till the 120, the line of that code. You have declared on the top. Right? You can just get down. Okay, if you want to use a variable, most probably declared before you use it. Right? It doesn't mean, because code understand. For example, you have this code here. Just click here. Oops, sorry. Right? You don't have to, for example, you just say, okay, record count 0, and then you do something, nothing happens, but still you don't use this record count anywhere else, right? You don't use it, but still, මේම දැම්මොත් ලස්සනයිනේ උඩින් variable ටික වෙනම තියෙනවා, ඔමේ ටික වෙනම තියෙනවා, just like that, right? You don't do that because all the time, all this, when you declare a variable on the top, that means it's declared, it's reserved, right? Till you use it. It's better you use it before you declare it, before you use it. Right? That's another good practice. And next step. Where is my slide? Magic numbers. What are these? Can you guess? Think you have like a statuses in progress and new and completed and closed. Two different numbers. You have known this, right? If status equals 1, you do this. Else status equals 2, you do this. You are doing it, right? Those are called magic numbers. So you don't know, right? So it's like this. So status equals 3, do something like that. You don't do this in the code. Because why is that? Because last week I saw a code in the SQL query. It says pick up these values. The status equals not 1. Status is 1, 4, and 0. I was like, okay, 1, 4, 0. What is these statuses? Then you have to call the developer. Then developer said, okay, 1, 4, 0. Then he said, okay, 1 is like, okay, this new, and 0 is, I can't remember. 4 is like in progress. So he remembers it. So what happens to the next developer? These are called magic numbers. You don't know to use this. Because in C#, there's a nice thing called enums. Right? You can use them. For example, you just go here. Just go to the code. Just say enum. Here, project status. You start with these things. Right? You say, okay, new, in progress. And you say, okay, completed, closed, resolved. Right? You can use these things. Why is that? Because this is self-explanation, right? You say, okay, project status dot in progress, project status dot this. But even though automatically it assigns some numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter even if you are saving the database, it goes as numbers. But still, it's understandable, it's readable. This is one thing, another mistake people do. Because they're easy, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because they say, okay, they remember this sequence. 0 is this, and they have this sequence. What if somebody changes the name, right? Or another thing, you can just straight away save this as a string. In progress string. So because it doesn't matter. You say project status dot in progress dot toString goes in the database. Right? A small string. This is one way of doing it. These are called magic numbers. You never do that. And these are some other common problems I noticed. For example, nested conditionals. It looks like an arrow. I've seen that code. If, then else if, else if, else if, else if. It goes like this and then comes like this. Nested ifs. So how do you solve these problems? Why you need nested ifs? Nested if මොකටද යන්නේ? So that means your logic, you have a logical thinking problem because you think, what if this happens? And then what the next thing happens? And then what if this doesn't happen, right? That means you have a logical thinking problem on your code. So that means the logic is wrong. That's why you got so many nested ifs. Right? Then how do you know? Because if you have like one if statement, there's one teacher told me, never use a else. I try to do that, I can't, because you can't do that, right? Why? This should be always sometimes else, right? So sometimes you have to then, okay, if you don't use an else, but it depends. It's like this. If you just go to this code, We say something int record count equals 10. Then you're going to say if record count greater than 100, do something. Right? And then if you just have else, said don't do what did you. Above something or a kind of else. Right? So for example, this is without else, how do you do that? So normally sometimes if this is in a method, you can straight away, if this condition matches, you can just return inside it. Right? You don't have to go for an else. And then another thing I've seen, exception handling. I've seen on web APIs, people are trying to handle exceptions in the endpoint, the web API call. For example, it says, okay, you access it, it comes to your action method, and inside that action method, there are exception handling. You don't handle exception on that level. Why is that? Because it should be clean, because it will be end up as a fat controller. We call it a fat controller. That is, you don't write logic on that level. It should be just a request and then a response. It's called the request-response pattern. It just request and response. Whatever that happens in between, it should be encapsulated. When you return errors or you don't return exception, you return some JSON object saying, okay, this is the problem. I'll just show it to you. Right? I'll just create a new project here. Think you have to deliver something. New project. Let's see, I have like 13 minutes. I have this ASP.NET Core web application. I'm going to say next. I'm going to say refactoring. I'm going to create it. Think you have like 2 weeks to deliver an MVP, a solution, or maybe think you have a parallelly developing, there's another front-end developer developing with you. So you can't wait till you complete your endpoints. Right? There's a problem. Then you have to do some code, some hard coding or whatever it is. You just code it. Right? I'm going to create this API. So because I'm just creating an API because everybody loves web APIs, right? No. Any full stack developers? 1, 2. It's okay. Right? Sometimes you have teams. There are front-end developers, there are back-end developers. It should be parallelly done. Think about this. You have this code. Where is my code? Yes. And then you're going to delete these default things. Delete. Okay. And then controller. Let's see. Just stay here. I'm going to delete this controller as well. Default one. Delete. Think you have this API controller. Just list something, right? It should work. To work with the front-end developer, I'm going to say create a new controller. Let's say I'm going to say an empty API controller. Add. I'm going to say products. First thing, the endpoint should be available for the front-end developer as soon as you started it, right? So you just write code. And then so many things. While it's loading, I'll just show you one slide here. One bad thing people do, switch statements and duplicate code. I'm going to solve this. And then another one, I missed it, I think. The comments. Have you seen people commenting? Huh? Comments you use. If you say, okay, int a as 0, you're going to say, okay, I'm / comment, I have assigned 0 to a. Right? You don't have to explain every line of code. It should be self-explanatory, because if you write comments, if you are the developer, my belief is like, if you write comments, that means you write bad code. you write a code, this one, this is happening here, right? And some code chunk, and then you have to write another note, this is what's happening out there. Right? You're getting a variable, and then it's updating this one, and it goes to this variable, and it's saving. You don't have to do that, because this code should be explaining that. Right? Commenting will be, okay, sometimes you can say just a comment, I'm going to access this API from that end, that's it. You don't have to like comment single line. Sometimes they write their life stories inside the code. You don't like that. Right? Right? So then where is my code? Right? I have this code. This is my route. It says API controller. I want to create a small route. Let's say public action result. Action result. Saying get. It just gets something. Return. Okay. Right? It's going to return a 200. Then I have a model, another class. This is for the front-end developer. I'm doing it for the sake of public. I'm going to say product, public class, product. It has public int id get set, public string title get set, or maybe another variable saying public status. Right? This is for the front-end developer. This will be the JSON object he gets, an ID and a title and a status. Right? It will be a small JSON object he'll be getting, and then I'm going to write another code here to get all these things. Say for int I equals 1i 11i plus plus. And then I'm going to get some list of movies, list product. Products equals new list. Right? Now I'm going to add some products here. Dot add new product. Let's say ID equals I, and the title equals, I'm going to put a comma here, and the title equals saying maybe a dynamic title, dollar title I, and I'm going to say the status equals I moderate to true else false. Oops. 0. Right? This is my code. And then I'm going to make sure this looks nice. And the status here. So there will be true or false, whatever it is, right? So we get this code, and then I'm going to return my products. This is the endpoint for the front-end developer. So I get 6 minutes more. So this should work, right? This will return some list of products. Now front-end developer has something to work with. Let's see how it works. You just execute it. I'm going to say as the routing API / products. Now I will have my JSON string here. See, the products are there. Randomly, the true false is there. Sometimes it's false, sometimes it's true. Right? I have 10 products. Now front-end developer can work on. His part is done. Now next step is refactoring it. How to refactoring without breaking the front-end? First thing, you don't change the endpoint name. It should be API products, that's it, right? And the next step will be changing the backend, encapsulate this code into refactor it and make sure your code is done. First thing, I'm going to use it. Okay, let's start. First step I'm going to use is get this class out, right? This will be the first step. You can use refactor, what do you call this, resharper. Oops, sorry. Just select it. I'm going to select right mouse. Where's refactor? Refactor. Or you can just say extract members, or use this class, convert this is your class, extract class, right? Or you can just say, you create a new one, right mouse click, I'm going to say add folder, models, oops, sorry. Models, and then new class, add new class, product, and then you go back to your controller, you grab this one, cut, and then come to product and paste it. So now it's out. Now you can say you have this model here, you say okay, don't worry about it, create using refactor models, right? Next step, get out, you can just get this out, right? Get this out and then create another folder. I'm going to say right mouse, add new folder. I'm going to say repository. Right mouse, add class. Let's say product repository. In that one, you're going to create public list of product, get products, and save that code here, right? Now you get this product out using models, then you're going to say return products, right? Now that is out. This is one way of doing it, and then you have to call that method here. Then this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is like dependency injection, right? Now you can't just test this one if you just tightly couple these two, right? On ASP.NET Core, by default the dependency injection is supported. What you can do is you just extract this interface here. You create an interface from this one. You go to the repository and you're going to say right mouse. Sorry, this one. Oops, sorry. Right mouse. Extract interface. Right? I'm going to say iProduct repository. Or you just say iProduct. And include this one as well. Next. Now you have the repository here, the iProduct, and then you have the implementation of this one, right? You go to the startup. You're going to say here, under the configuration, this one the configuration part. You're going to say services, add scope, add transient, and then you're going to say the start. The first parameter should be your repository, iProduct. The second one should be the implementation, product repository. Right? These two should be there. By default, it automatically pass this one here. Now it is done there. And go back to your controller. This is saved controller. You're going to create a constructor. Or I'm going to create a product. I'm going to say repo. And then you're going to say here iProduct underscore repo. Repo should be, sorry, repo. This one should be the now. Now it's done. Just semicolon. Now you can just straight away access this one. Underscore repo dot get products, right? So nothing will break your code. That means it works fine. So you have just included it into a repository. Now that repository, you can just here you have this implementation here under repository. It just picks up from a list straight away. You can change into a database without breaking the front end. Any code. So endpoint is there. Endpoint is clean. Again, this clean code, the clean part. This code is totally readable. Products controller will say, okay, this is my repo, action result get, and from the repository get my products. That's it. You don't have to comment, you don't have to do anything. It's self-explanation, right? And then you have like dependency injection. No problem. Any dependencies you can just inject, any database, anything, you just implement the repository and then pass it. This is possible because of ASP.NET Course by default. That means out of the box, it supports dependency injection. There's an extension, by default it supports, right? That's my plan for today. So there'll be another session after this one, right? So that's the plan, and then I hope you learn something, and then this is your mistake, and then you have to fix it, right? It doesn't matter if it's .NET Core or whatever, the method, all the things you have to do is the same, right? Thank you very much, not for sleeping after even lunch time, right? Thanks, guys. Thank you.
So if you have any questions, please do put forward.
Int A equals. Show me your code, then I'll just let you know, right? This is my code, then there will be lots of questions. I can just look at this. Thanks, guys, again. So make sure you are coming to our developer forum every month. Maybe the second or Thursday, then you will learn something new and all these things, right? All these scenarios, and especially for the girls. So we are creating another forum called Women in Tech. You can speak and you can just share your knowledge. You can be a speaker there. If you want, we'll just publish it. Maybe we start it from January. So we'll get Microsoft support for that as well. So the idea is to bring all this tech in women to one place and then share your knowledge across the region. So if you're interested, I will just publish it. You can come and join with us. It'll be part of the Sri Lanka Developer Forum, but just for women, right? Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiqri, for an interesting session.